that a cybersecurity manager can do for his organization?
Right. I think the best thing that any cybersecurity manager, and I always talk to this with our let's say program graduates and university students when they ask the question how to land a CISO role. I guess the answer is very simple. You have to understand the business and you have to talk with the business. And as simple as this statement is, and I know it's some sort of a cliche, but doing it in reality is not really that easy. So a CISO, for example, needs to not only understand the business, but to know the business by heart. So I'm a big believer in, for example, CISOs that come from banking should understand banking, right? Yes, there are fresh ideas coming from other industries, but this dialogue and around the risk can only happen with the business if the person talking to them understand what they are trying to do. What's their target customer, what's the scope, what's the regulation, and so forth. So I guess partnering with the business and making their life easy and enabled through cybersecurity is the biggest advice I would give to everyone. In many cases, and I'm seeing this changing, right, positively, but in many cases, cybersecurity becomes a burden to the business. So it becomes a business disabler, I would say, a business showstopper, right? That shouldn't be the case. I mean, cybersecurity in itself and through innovation can be an enabler for the business. So let me give you a good example. How do you, as a startup or as a fintech or as a bank, right? How do you win the customer trust, right, if you don't have cybersecurity? Now, this dialogue needs to happen between the business and the CISO or the cybersecurity person, right? Because then only the cybersecurity can add value to the conversation and say, all right, this is how we need to design this product. This is how we need to secure our customer. This is how we announce this to the customer so we can ensure that the customer trusts us and feels safe around it. So actually, cybersecurity is an enabler to the business. It's not the famous no word, this is too risky, let's not do it. It's about what's the solution so we can do it.
If there's a security breach, how do you tackle it?
Look, it's a very popular question, always asked by the board and by the management, right? What if we get breached, right? And my classic or my stock answer is the following, right? You don't think about that after the breach. You work towards it. Right? So there is a famous assumption saying, assume that you are breached. I mean, as a CISO, on a day-to-day basis, assume that you are breached and then act based on that. The roadmap to this is basically you have to, number one, again, partner with the business, make sure that they understand what is a breach, make sure that they understand what's their role during a breach, make sure that your cybersecurity, let's say, processes supports breach response, and then one good thing that we found that works is something like a playbook, right? I mean, how when a breach happens or when you suspect a breach, and how can this go through a process systemically, so you can actually understand the impact, and then how should the management respond? This is through probably crisis management meetings and response strategies, right? How do you handle the media, which is now becoming very, very important? CISO is now becoming on the forefront, talking to the media about breaches. How will you handle that? Are you ready, right? What kind of information do you have? When to say that this breach has been resolved, because it's not that easy. How much time do you need to investigate? Because everybody's worried. They want to know what happened to, if you're in a bank, for example, what happened to my money? You're the customer, right? And you need to provide some answers. So this playbook should have all these steps, right, that can be integrated systemically, and then everyone should be trained on it, right, continuously. Then they will be able to act in a normal breach.
What is happening in the crypto world these days?
I think Bitcoin and crypto has been known to be a high-risk endeavor, right? And it is why you have also high gains, right? And the type of investor that we have there, right, know this fact, right? But I think because of this, the landscape is going to change very, very soon. We will have to have a common framework, or at least for cybersecurity, right? From a cybersecurity point of view, how do we handle cryptos, right? And this framework does not exist so far. I know there are a few organizations and regulators around the world that are trying to come up with such framework, right? So, but it's coming our way, because the trust of the consumer or the end users in crypto can only happen, right, when they have confidence that it is being organized somehow. Right now it's some sort of an adventure and everything is super organic, right? And this stops a huge amount of the market to join the crypto world. But if there is regulations, right, and with the innovation and technology that is being enabled through crypto, then accordingly the landscape can grow. Security is at the heart of this mechanism, because the main reason that someone will start establishing trust in crypto, which is a digital form of currency, is the cybersecurity around it. And the cybersecurity framework is actually at the heart of it. And I just want to go back to the identity, right? Tying the identity to the world of cryptos and trusting that it is secured is what's going to enable trust from the end users to start using the crypto more and more.
Is risk assessment more stringent in banking? How so?
All right, I think risk assessment is risk assessment. Banking has been historically had the best cybersecurity regulation, the best cybersecurity talent and skill and infrastructure. It's for a basic thing, right? We're protecting the people money, we're protecting the economies, right? So it's cybersecurity is quite advanced in terms of banking. In terms of the risk assessment, I think in banking we will have to utilize things that makes practicality and prioritization of risk, right? Because the amount of risk that faces any bank at any point in time is huge. And there is also the question around how do I prioritize my investment for protection? I mean, which things needs to be protected first? To answer that question, we follow the methodology called threat-led risk assessments. Right? So this means what? We identify all the threats in the market by the adversaries or the hackers or the cyber criminals, right? And then we try to establish relevance in terms of priority to our own internal assets, and accordingly we start coming up with the prioritization in terms of investment and risk appetite of the bank. So I guess from that perspective, we're not again trying to protect everything everywhere, right? Trying to protect what's important, or what we call crown jewels, and what's important for the business, right, first. So we have a focused investment in the focused risk areas, right? And I do believe that this is one of the best approaches to follow in prioritizing your investment while you're doing your risk assessment. Of course, other risks needs to be covered, right? But then you need to think what matters to you first.
How do you create cybersecurity awareness?
Yeah, I myself receive cybersecurity awareness, right? And of course, you need to do that also to your customers, to your employees. But I think cybersecurity awareness has evolved over the years from preaching, right? We just want to preach the user, don't do this, don't do that, which is hugely ineffective. Right? And then we start engaging the users in cybersecurity. So the way I'm seeing this is by establishing relevance, right? So we have to build relevance scenarios. And let me tell you that this can go as complicated as establishing relevance to culture, to geographical location, time, and context. So cybersecurity awareness can be only useful when I'm coming to you in your job and then telling you about a specific scenario that's related to your day-to-day job, and then tell you this is what could happen, right? What should you do? And then let you make the decision, right? So I guess establishing relevance is one of the huge, let's say, things that we need to do in our cybersecurity awareness programs in general. If you see the same message so many times, your brain shuts down. They start ignoring it, right? But if you keep it relevant like a marketing campaign, right? I mean, the obvious is when you do marketing campaign, you want to be relevant to people, so they want to buy your product. If we as cybersecurity professionals start thinking like the marketing people and then say, right, we want cybersecurity to be relevant to these people, and then we start approaching them. Let me give you a good practical example. So for example, we have different training, for example, for IT people, because it needs to be relevant to them. We have different cybersecurity awareness for, let's say, retail business or salespeople, right? That is delivering different type of messaging. We have different training for CEOs, for the board of directors, right? Because only then they can start listening and then acting, right? Otherwise, it's just another phishing message, just another red sign. Thank you, I will shut off.
What are some of the decisions that helped you reach where you are now?
I think what I believe is very, very important is that one should have a goal, any goal, right? Because without a goal, you lose track of why you're doing what you're doing and where you're going with it, right? Cybersecurity is a very addictive job, right? In terms of, it's so exciting. You meet everyone, you do everything, you interact with every business. And sometimes it's overwhelming that you want to continue doing it for the sake of doing it. So this is where the goal actually works, right? How do you build up your next step, right, with a goal in mind? So I would say, my approach was, I didn't want to be a CISO. That was not the goal. The goal is, what do I want to achieve when I'm a CISO? And then when I achieved a few, and I started building passion for fintechs, startup, I thought, all right, this is about the time to shift left and start going after my real goal, right? I want to be in that space. I want to learn new technologies. I want to be part of building the new cybersecurity frameworks for things that have no cybersecurity framework, and accept the challenge. Didn't matter whether the title change or not. What matters is the goal.
We know that you have a lot of responsibilities. How do you deal with stress and pressure?
Lots of CISOs around the world, of course, they complain from stress and pressure. Pressure comes from many directions, probably whether you're doing your business as usual and your team management, whether it's coming from your own management and the organization, or whether it's coming from the pressure of the regulators and the industry, right? And I would like to think that we as CISOs, let's say, like to complain a lot about this. Like, it's like every other business leader is not stressed as well, right? And we're the only one. I think everyone is stressed, and I think the solution to stress for everyone is their passion, right? If you're passionate about what you do, right, and if you have a goal that's directing that passion, you will end up enjoying the stressful moment. And this is how I handle stress. I mean, I handle stress by loving what I do, because I know I have an end goal, and I know I like this job, right? And I know this small part is part of that job, and I need to enjoy it to achieve my goal. So I'm not stressed.
We know about your professional bio now, but what's your life story?
Started with technology when I was 8 years old, right? When I was insisting to buy a robot, I don't know why, right? And then my father insisted that I need to buy a computer, right? And this is where it all started, I guess, right? So from that age, I liked computers. I liked the idea of programming. I programmed BASIC, and of course, many other professionals will have the same stories for you, right? But what I summarize my life story is about education and learning, and I would emphasize on the fact that I like to learn from the day-to-day. I like to learn from open sources. I like to learn from free, let's say, sources. I believe that other people's knowledge is the actual knowledge that someone should acquire. I mean, I have a few certifications, right? I wouldn't say that I have a lot, right? And I'm proud of it, because even if you look up my LinkedIn profile, you will see a huge amount of free courses that I attended. And this is what I actually try with my kids as well, right? Because knowledge is not specific to a specific certification or a specific track, right? It teaches you what you want to learn. Because teaching the material to everyone doesn't give you the same result. It's the ones who learn that actually find something new, and then they start progressing. So I guess my life story in general, if I sum it up professionally, my professional life story is about continuous learning. I just want to learn all the time.
I have one final question for you, which wasn't on here. Now, leading on to that, is if we learn, right? You mentioned kids, I have kids. Kids are learning, and I'm seeing this interaction of how learning has changed.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything has changed, right? I don't know what type of job roles there will be 20 years from now, right? The world is changing so fast. Technology in the last 20 years, everyone knows this, last 20 years,
yes,
last
of course.
200 years, that type of thing. So, if you were not a CISO, right? Because that's a defined job role.
Yes.
Right? Based on what you absorbed or your learning, what imaginary role would you be doing right now? Right?
That's a very tough question, right? Because I do love my CISO role very, very much, right? But if I had to pick up an imaginary role in the future, and top of my head, I have a blank. I think I love the CISO role. I just don't want to be anything else.